Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, Stephanie's Lerlin. I'm Stephanie. And welcome to my May reading wrap up. I read quite a lot of books in May, and I also read a couple on my Kindle. So we have a lot to talk about today. I have done a few reading vlogs recently, and I've mentioned a couple of these books, if not most of these books, in those vlogs, so I'll link them down below or else in the card so you can watch them if you haven't seen them already. And also my more in-depth thoughts on these books will be in those vlogs, obviously, because I'm reading them real time, so you'll get to see all my different reactions if you'd like to see that. I started off the month with a fabulous read, and it was a reread for me, and I think I did a dedicated vlog to this, but that was Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare. This is the first book in the Infernal Devices series, and as you can see, I annotated it quite a bit. It was a reread for me, like I said. I've read this book once before. I was so excited to dive back into this world and reread it because I love all these characters so much, and I had wanted to continue with the overall saga of the Shadowhunters books, which is why I picked this up this month. I kept my rating the same. I kept it at 4 stars, but I feel like I probably could have bumped it up a little bit. But then again, I'm not really sure. I feel like this book for me is kind of slow because it's the first book in a series, and also I want all the drama and exciting stuff to happen, and that doesn't happen until towards the end of this book and the second and third book. In case you don't know, this book is the first book in the Infernal Devices series by Cassandra Clare. It is the prequel series to The Mortal Instruments by Cassandra Clare, and it's in the world of Shadowhunters. And basically in this one, we follow 3 main characters. We follow Tessa Gray, who is from New York, and she ends up going over to London to follow her brother. When she's there, she ends up getting caught in the Shadowhunters world and realizes that her life isn't as it seems, and meets these 2 boys called Will Herondale and Jem Carstairs, and basically a lot of drama ensues, and it's so entertaining and wonderful. But I'm sure you all knew that already, because who doesn't know about this series at this point? But it was a great start to my month. Then the next book I read on my Kindle, and I rated it 3.75 stars. And I also mentioned it in my 24-hour readathon that I uploaded recently, and that is Dark Rise by C.S. Pacat. I'm not going to talk much about it because I feel like I spoke quite in depth about it in that readathon, but it basically follows our main character, again named Will, and he is on the run from the people who killed his mother. And while on the run, he ends up finding this group of people called stewards, who are mythical kind of soldiers. His mother's dying wish was for Will to go to these stewards and go to their kingdom, their citadel place. And so that's exactly what he does. All the while they're trying to stop the Dark King from resurrecting. So it's a lot of mythical and fantastical elements, and the plot is actually quite interesting, and it had a lot of elements that were unique, and I was really intrigued to find out more. Overall, I gave this book a 3.75 stars because I enjoyed the characters and I enjoyed the plot, and I thought that it was such an interesting concept, but I don't think it was executed in the best way. It was kind of messy and hard to follow and just didn't feel very cohesive. But like I said, I explained more in depth about my thoughts in that 24-hour readathon vlog, so if you want to know more, go and watch that. Then the next book I also read in the 24-hour readathon, and I adored this book. It was so good. I rated it 5 stars, and it's been an anticipated read for me for a while. That is The Stolen Heir by Holly Black. This is a novel set in the world of Elfhame, and if you haven't seen Holly Black's work before, she has a series called the Folk of the Air series. The first book is called The Cruel Prince, and we follow a bunch of characters in that. This is a novel centered around one of the main characters in the Folk of the Air series, brother, called Oak, and he is kind of the prince of Elfhame. He ends up meeting this girl called Wren. She's also the queen of this other place in the world of Elfhame called the Court of Teeth. So we follow Wren and Oak on their kind of adventures while they try to defeat Wren's mother, who is this evil woman who is trying to essentially like do necromancy in order to secure her place on the throne because her daughter is actually the queen. It's kind of hard to explain, but yeah, we just follow those two characters on their little adventure. It's so good. The characters themselves have so much depth, and it was so nice and interesting to read about Oak when he's older, because in the Folk of the Air series, I think he's around 8 or 9, something like that. And in this, he is 17. Yes, he's 17. And it's really interesting to read about him and how his character has changed from him being a young child to him being now a teenager. And also Wren's character is so fascinating and just has so much depth and rawness to her. I just love her. I love her and I love Oak and I love them together. The angst is wonderful, and this is the first book in a duology, so the second book hasn't come out yet. I'm so excited to read it though, because I'm just in love with this. It was fantastic. And like I said, I talk and scream and just rave about this more in my 24-hour readathon. It's such a good book. Absolutely wonderful. Holly Black just is an incredible writer, and this is fantastic. The next book I read in the month of May, I also read again in the 24-hour readathon. Are you sensing a theme here? This is how I read like all my books this month. And that is The Wrath and the Dawn by Renee Ahdieh. This book was so good. I rated this 4.5 stars. It was fantastic. I had so much fun reading it. I have had this book on my shelves for like over a year now and I hadn't picked it up, but I'm so glad I did during that 24-hour readathon. It centers around our main character, Shazzy, and she ends up volunteering herself to marry the boy king called Khalid. And basically, Khalid has been for the past while been taking a new bride every night, but this bride does not last until the morning and she dies. So we find out early in the prologue that the reason why this is happening is because Khalid ended up killing someone, we don't know who, and there has been a prophecy set out kind of thing, and Khalid has to take, I think it's 100 lives in order to repent for this one life that he's took. So it's very dramatic, very high stakes, and it ends up that Shazzy's best friend is one of these brides and obviously gets killed. So Shazzy is determined to last until the morning and marry this boy king and kill him. So it's a great enemies to lovers moment, and there's so much angst in this. It's so wonderful. The only thing I have to say about this, which is why I knocked off the 0.5 stars and it didn't get a 5 stars, is that at points it felt a little unedited and just not exactly constructed in the best way, but it didn't really affect my reading experience that much. It was only a little thing that I noticed, but other than that, absolutely obsessed with this. There is a sequel and I need to read that. The next book I read was such a beautiful retelling of a fairy tale, and that is Cinderella is Dead by Kaylin Bayron. And I rated this 4.5 stars. It is a Cinderella retelling, in case you couldn't tell from the front cover, which is stunning, by the way, like hello. I have also had this book for like over a year and I haven't picked it up, and I'm so glad I did because it was such a fun story. It is, like I said, a princess retelling. In this world, it has been 200 years since Cinderella died, and there are laws and mandates out there that say that every girl over the age of 16, I think, has to attend the ball each year, and she has 3 years to find a suitor or find a husband. And if she doesn't, she kind of just gets like sent away and exiled in a way. Our main character, Sophia, is totally against this. She wants her freedom, and also she's in love with her best friend. A gay Cinderella retelling, like hello. Could you ask for anything better? Sophia is trying her best to get out of this unjust world, and she wants to run away with Sophia and one of her other friends. And she ends up kind of causing a bit of ruckus at one of the balls, and has to flee and run away in order not to get captured. She meets a girl while she's on the run, and we kind of follow their adventures and their path as they try to get rid of this awful patriarchy craziness of a kingdom and take the king off the throne. So it's absolutely wonderful. There's so many different plot twists in it that I did not expect. It's such a wonderful spinning of the Cinderella tale, and I had so much fun when I read it. And also the romance in it, like, it's giving. We love little gabies. It's so fantastic. The next book I read was another retelling. It was a retelling of Pride and Prejudice. So it is called Pride by E.B. Zoibe. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. I'm really sorry if I'm not. I rated this book 3 stars. I think it was such a fun read, and it was such an interesting retelling of Pride and Prejudice. The kind of angst and hidden love under annoyance and irritation was there in between our 2 main characters, and I just had so much fun when I read this. Also, it was a really quick read for me, and it kind of just felt like home. There was so many parts of this story that were centered around trying to hold on to home and hold on to your childhood and the things that make you feel like you're at home. That makes sense? I don't know. But it just felt like a warm hug. Like, it was so fab. I loved it. And also, hello, can we just look at this for a minute? That's incredible. These are our 2 main characters, by the way. And then the ending was so lovely, but also so bittersweet. It was just fabulous. I loved it. It's a really good coming of age book, and it also tackled loads of other topics like gentrification and racism and different things like that. It was really, really interesting and such a good read. Then I continued my reread of this series, like I mentioned earlier. So the next 2 books that I read were the 2nd and 3rd book in the Infernal Devices. So firstly, I read Clockwork Prince, which is the 2nd book, and then I read Clockwork Princess, which is the 3rd and final book in the series. So obviously can't talk much about these because they're the 2nd and 3rd book in a series, but they just follow on from the events of Clockwork Angel, and then there's the fabulous conclusion in Clockwork Princess, and the most heartbreaking epilogue I've ever read in my entire life. I reread these books and I also annotated them. These are just absolutely fantastic books, and I love Cassandra Clare. Like, this series just holds such a special place in my heart. It's fantastic, and I rated both of them 5 stars, like, obviously. The whole reason why I had read these books was because I was preparing for a book that I've been wanting to read for a long time, and I've actually filmed a vlog specifically for this book, and that is a reading vlog for Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare. So this is the first book in the Last Hour series, and this is centered around the children of the characters in the Infernal Devices series. As you can imagine, I loved it. I'm not going to say too much because I'm going to leave it to the vlog, but I rated this 4.75 stars, so almost 5 stars. And if you want to know all my in-depth thoughts, you should definitely watch the vlog. It was such a fun vlog. It's extremely chaotic. God knows if I'll even make any cohesive sentences in that, but it's a fun time. And yeah, like I said, this is based around all the children of the characters in the Infernal Devices series. There is so many new characters. There is so many new different plot elements. And again, I was just in the Shadowhunters world again, and I just had so much fun. It was wonderful and amazing and fabulous. And I cannot wait to read the 2nd book. That's every single book I read in the month of May. We went through those quite quickly. I'm very proud of myself for that. But I had such a good reading month. So I read 9 books in total, which is so fab. And considering that I've kind of fallen off my reading lately, it was so nice to get back into the world of fantasy, especially because, you know, I love fantasy. I think all these books are fantasy. Oh my god, 8 out of 9 of these books were fantasy books. Maybe fantasy is just the only genre I read. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!